Hello, welcome to this video on how to follow the step-by-step guide for Aerosoft's Airbus. In particular, this one uses the Airbus A318. So let's start off then with the Aerosoft fuel planner. Here it is. Once you load it up, you probably start off in the simple mode, which is what you see here. But we're going to select advanced mode for now. And for our units, make sure we have kilograms selected. For the departure airport, select Innsbruck, which is Lima, Oscar, Whiskey, India. And for our arrival airport, select Lima, Foxtrot, Mike, November. This will calculate that the distance we have to fly today is 277 nautical miles. Enter 80 passengers, cargo of 2,000 kilos, and this will then do all the calculations that's needed over here. I've just noticed my planned flight level is 150, but in fact we're planning to fly at flight level 310, so I better change this quickly. There we go. And you'll see that as I did that, I made a whole number of recalculations all over the place. Taxi time 20 minutes, APU time 20 minutes. Alternate distance is 200 nautical miles, holding fuel 20 minutes, contingency fuel, and so on all the way down. Our wind speed and direction is effectively 00 because we're going to use fair weather when we start up FSX. With all these details entered, you can see our tow Mach number is 28%, and the trim recommendation is up for 0.7. With all that done, make sure you have auto load with aircraft checked, and click on Generate Load Sheet. Not a lot seems to happen, but in the background it's generating a load sheet that we can then pull into our Airbus as a much simpler way of entering all this information. Okay, that done, let's move it out of the way. Let's fire up FSX. Now I'm using a new joystick for FSX today, so forgive me if things appear a little bit jumpy or edgy or just not quite as smooth as you might expect it to be. Look out later for a review on the Cytec X52, which is what I'm using today for the first time. Okay, with FSX loaded then, let's wait for EasyDock to load, which I can tell by the spinning hourglass thingy by my mouse cursor. And with that done, let's select the Airbus A319. The route we're going to fly in the step-to-step, I think, is flown by Lufthansa. So why don't we select that aircraft from the available options. For the current weather, as I say, we're going to be flying in fair weather, so we'll select that. Current location, we need to change to Innsbruck. And we'll have our starting position as parking 5. For current time and season, select day, and let's set the time back to around 9 AM, I think. That should do. Cool, so with the Airbus loaded, notice that we're moving forward. But no worries, it will stop in time before it crashes into the building, which is probably just as well. Now, as I say, I'm using the EasyDock camera here, so I'll be moving around the cockpit, and if you think, how on earth is he doing that? Well, that's how I'm doing it. I'm doing it with EasyDock. The simulator itself comes with a number of its own standard windows. If you want to use those, I've got them set up on the flybys here. So if you want to go to the overhead, for example, just click on the appropriate view, and it'll take you to wherever you need to go, NCDUs and so on and so forth. As I say, I'm not going to use that, but it's there and available to you if you don't have EasyDock loaded. So let's take my standard pilot's view of the cockpit. The first thing we're going to do is put the aircraft into a cold and dark state. So for that, I'm going to come down to the first officer's MCDU, select aircraft state and cold and dark. It'll shut down the engine, turn off lights, open the exit, basically do everything it needs to do to put the aircraft into a cold and dark state. I'll go to the overhead panel, and I'm going to turn on the batteries, battery 1 and 2, and the external power. I'm also going to turn on my navigation light. Down to the screens, I'm going to turn on the PFD, take it back a couple of clicks so it doesn't look quite so washed out on the colour front, and scroll down to the MCDUs to turn on the eCams, dial those back by a couple of notches as well so they don't look too washed out either. With those done, back over to the first officer's MCDU, and I'm going to select the checklist option and then turn on the option for checklist, which means that the checklist will be automatically run between the captain and the first officer, and because I want the first officer, I'll turn on the co-pilot option as well. And with those two guys set up, I'm going to return to the main page of this MCDU, select load and fuel. Now in here I can either enter in details or I can use the load sheet that I produced earlier. That's what I'm going to do. Notice the values change as I do that. I now have one of two options. These amber things here are guiding me. I can select start boarding, which will do precisely that, but in a simulated real life way, and you'll see these numbers here, which are the passenger numbers, increase as passengers clatter onto your aeroplane and make it dirty and walk up and down the aisle and mutter and grumble and try and slam their package into the overhead lockers and so on and so forth. We can forego all that grief and just hit load instance. Let's do that. Okay, cool. So all of our passengers are aboard, all 80 of them, all the loads in there. The fuel's all loaded up as well. So as far as we're concerned in terms of passengers and fuel, we're ready to go. So with that done, let's run the first automated checklist. There's a reminder up here at the top of your screen, says MCDU2, start checklist or use key 1. I prefer key 1, let's do that.
Okay, let's start with the cockpit preparation checklist.
Batteries?
Both on.
Electrical power?
And external power is on.
Navigation lights?
On.
Engine master?
Both off.
Engine mode selector?
Checked. Normal.
Landing gear lever?
Checked.
Parking brake?
Off.
Flaps?
Checked. Position.
Speed brake lever?
Checked. Retracted.
Thrust levers?
Idle.
Transponder mode?
Checked. Standby.
Radio control panel?
Set on.
ECAM recall?
Checked.
Anti-skid?
On.
Flight director?
On.
Emergency lights?
Set.
No smoking signs?
Set on.
Anti-ice?
Off.
Probe window heat?
Auto.
Air condition?
Checked.
Ventilation panel?
Is checked.
Electric panel?
Checked.
Fuel pumps?
Set on.
Hydraulics?
Is checked.
Accu-brake pressure?
Checked.
Ground proximity warning system?
On.
Electronic flight control system?
On.
ADIRS?
There's a short delay now while the captain turns on the ADIRS. Very necessary.
Set to nav.
Emergency equipment?
Is checked.
Checklist complete.
The reason why setting on the ADIRS is so important is because without it, if we try and do the IRS align without the ADIRS being on, they won't align, which means that our screens here, our PFD and our ND, will remain as they are, so effectively we won't be able to do anything. So do make sure that the ADIRS are aligned first before we do anything else. Okay, so that checklist is completed, and I will now go and enter in the flight plan. And to do that, we go to the captain's MCDU and go to the init, page 1. So we enter in our departure airport, which is Lima, Oscar, Whiskey, India, followed by / and our destination, which is Lima, Foxtrots, Mike, November. Enter that into the from to. We're given a choice here, top left, of Lowy LFMN01, which is a company approved route. This is a quick way of being able to enter the entire flight plan. I'm in favour of quick and easy, so let's do that. Short delay while it goes through the database and sets up the waypoints and the flight corridors. And then we're returned to the page and some of the details been entered for us already. We'll enter Lima, Foxtrot, Mike, Lima as the alternate. There's nothing else we need to input here, so we'll just go for the return. And now click the Align IRS button. Aligning IRS can take 6 minutes, so it's very easy to see how people are encouraged to press that button just as early as they possibly can. But for the sake of repeating myself yet again, wait until the ADIRs have been switched on before you do that, otherwise everything all gets out of balance and just won't work right. You can tell I've suffered from this pain before, haven't you? So let's go and enter in our flight number. That's Delta Lima Hotel 319. Cost index, which is 30. Our cruising level, which is 31,000 feet, or 310, which then automatically calculates the external temperature. We'll select the RadNav page and enter Romeo Tango Tango for the ADF, and go to init page 2 and enter 6.8 for the block value. This will do some more calculations. Finally we go to the PORF, or rather we go to the PERF page, and on here we enter in our flap setting of 2, followed by /, followed by the trim we want to set, which is up 0.7, which came from our load sheet, you might remember. Enter that into flaps THS, and it now calculates our V1, VR and V2 speeds. Finally, for this section we enter at 11,000 into the Transalt. And that says done for this MCDU. Now we want to do some checks on the main panel, and we want to check that LS is off, which it is. That we have got the ND mode and range set to ARC, which it is, and 10 miles, which it is. Set the left VOR ADF switch to ADF, and I'm now going to enter an altitude of 12,000. I'm going to right click first of all to move the increment from 100 to 1000s, and then push forward for 12,000, or to dial in 12,000 and then push the button. This act of pushing the button has been described to me as giving the control for this to the aircraft. So we're going to do exactly the same for speed, and we get the dot at the end of a series of dashes to indicate that the aircraft's going to manage that, and the same for heading. The aircraft's going to manage that too. So with those done, and with all our passengers on board and we're all fueled and ready to go, we can now, as our instruction up here has been telling us for some time, close the doors, which I do using the key combination Shift E, which is standard FSX.
Captain, the cabin is secure. All passengers are aboard.
Okay, let's do the before start checklist.
Windows and doors.
Closed and locked.
APU.
Set on.
APU bleed.
There's a delay here before the APU bleed can be selected, which again is, I think, is trying to simulate real world. So when this happens on your sim, don't worry, this is quite normal.
Set on.
External power.
Disconnected and off.
Cabin signs.
Set on.
Thrust levers.
Idle.
Parking brake.
Set on.
Bearer reference.
1013.
1013. Check. Beacon lights.
Set on.
Checklist complete.
So that whole interaction there involving the flight attendant and the flight deck crew was triggered automatically when we closed the door. You don't have to do anything to start that process going. We're now being advised to select the start procedure, so I'm going to go down to the first officer's MCDU, and on here I'll go to the main page, and I want the checklist, and we have two options here: start push or start. The start push option allows us to start the engines as we're being pushed back, so that's the one we're going for here. And now we can select how far back we want to go and which direction we want to be pushed as well. So for taxiway distance, I'm going to go to 9 meters. So I'm going to select the minus here and either press this button or dial in using the mouse wheel if you have one. Seems to take an age to get down to 9 meters, but oh, there we are. And for direction, we want to go left 90 degrees. Same thing applies. Press the button or use your center mouse wheel to dial in the number. And we're good to go with that now, so we can click start and follow the instructions that we're given once we do that.
Flight deck to ground.
Go ahead, sir.
OK, ground. We have ATC clearance for push and start now. Please confirm ground equipment and services are clear.
Roger. The ground equipment and stairs are clear, all doors are closed. Steering pin is in position and we're ready when you are, Captain.
Start pushback.
Roger, sir. Please release your parking brakes.
So we need to release the brakes ourselves. I do that by pressing the period or full stop key.
Parking brake released.
Start and pushback. You can start both engines at your discretion, Captain.
Is OK.
So we can start both of our engines. And we do that by coming down to the engine selectors here. Right, click on the switch to move it across to ignition start, and then click on the engine 2 selector.
Starting engine 2.
Now we'll wait to get confirmation that the engine's fired up and started correctly before we fire up engine 1. Sounds as if our passengers have loaded a dog into the area at the back, or maybe that's just my dog downstairs.
Engine 2 stabilised.
With engine 2 stabilised, then we'll fire up engine 1.
Starting number 1.
Engine 1 stabilised.
The smoke you can see coming up here seems to be quite normal after the engines have started. Don't suddenly think your simulator is so real that it's decided to set fire to the brakes or any other part of the aircraft. This just seems to be a normal byproduct of the engine start.
And pushback is complete, Captain. Please set your parking brakes.
Again, we need to do that. I do that with the control full stop or control period key.
Parking brakes are set.
Okay then, Captain. Tow bar disconnected. You know steering pin is removed. All clear. Signal on the right. Have a good run, sir.
The after start checklist, please.
Engine mode selector.
Set.
APU bleed.
Set off.
APU master.
Set off.
Ground spoilers.
Set.
Rudder trim.
Checked 0.
Pitch trim.
Set.
Flight controls.
So first go with my new joystick. Let's give this a go.
Full left. Full right. Neutral. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Rudder. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Check. Flaps.
Flaps 2.
Anti-ice.
Off.
ECAM status.
Checked.
ECAM door page.
Checked.
Hand signal.
Received.
Checklist complete.
So there we are. The moving of the joystick left and right, forward and backward, and the rudder pedal is something that you will need to do, otherwise the checklist won't proceed and it will keep reminding you that you need to do that. Guess my new joystick checks out. That's good news. And that brings to an end this part of the preparation of your Airbus A319. Total time from firing up the fuel planner through to being ready to taxi is approximately 20 minutes. That's a nice steady pace. That's the way that I've just done it through now as well. So I'm going to finish this video here. Do please join me for the next video in the series, which will take us taxiing down to the selected runway and doing the takeoff and the standard instruments departure. I hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and if you like this, please click like. If you don't like it, click dislike, but do me a favour, let me know what it was about it that you didn't like. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks very much. See you in the next video.